gentlemen, this ball game is tied. Are you kidding me? No, seriously, are you kidding me?
Juan Soto, see you way later.
Oh, we're starting this. Here we go. Okay. It's slow building trade season. It absolutely exploded into fireworks, everybody. That was on Tuesday when the Padres unloaded their farm system to acquire 2.5 years of Juan Soto and one stretch run of Josh Bell. It was a historic blockbuster. You're watching The Sweat, presented by DraftKings. I am Emerson Lotzi. A ton more coming up on this show. Drew, are we going to run the Soto video that Billy put together, or we just ran it? I totally missed that. Okay, sounds good. All right, we'll talk winners and losers of the deadline here in, Billy, stop laughing, in just a moment. Jared Carrabis is sitting 2 feet from me. As for what else is coming up in the show, we're going to dive into some NFL training camp storylines, dude.
Yeah, dude.
I'm excited about that.
Yeah,
you're not
football.
You're not part of that? Yeah, Golick and Brandon are here because we're going to get into some college football odds as well. That's why we have Julian Edlow as part of the conversation in the final push for the FedEx Cup playoffs. But yeah, roll the open, baby. Roll the animation. That looks beautiful, Billy. You did a great job on that. It's the takeoff. So buckle up. Jared Carrabis, host of the Baseball is Dead podcast and Jared Carrabis podcast here. I love you, man. Thanks for being here. Good morning.
It's good to see you.
How you doing, man? It's the morning after the trade deadline. How you feeling right now?
Indifferent, I guess, would probably be the emotion. The Red Sox didn't sell. They didn't necessarily buy. I mean, they added to. Technically, they're better. Just by having a first baseman,
right,
they're better. It's August. I'm not wearing my watch today. August 2nd, 4th, 3rd?
Yeah.
Something like that.
It's the 3rd, dude.
Single-digit August date. And
it's early August.
It's early August, and the Red Sox have a first baseman for the first time in 3 years.
Yes.
Since Mitch Moreland.
Yep.
That's the last time the Red Sox had a legit first baseman Mitch Moreland.
Meat and potatoes. I do want to get into the Red Sox in just a second, but let's start in San Diego because San Diego's the big winner here, man. Juan Soto, Josh Bell. They found a way to ship Eric Hosmer out of town. He's the first baseman you were just referring to now with the Red Sox. They basically got everything they wanted in a 2-day span. So how good do these moves make them now? How much better are they now?
Substantially, I think is the word. Exponentially better, I think is the word. You add a guy like Juan Soto. Josh Bell, by the way, that was the first baseman that I was targeting for the Red Sox.
Okay.
He has very similar numbers to J.D. Martinez this year. Offensively, he's a switch hitter. He can hit from both sides. He can hit well from both sides, which is great. It's not like a Shane Victorino situation where you're like, hey, can you abandon hitting from that side? You're actually a left-handed hitter or a right-handed hitter.
Yeah.
So you add a guy like Josh Bell for, like you said, this stretch run. You have Juan Soto for the rest of the year, plus 2 more years of control. And I would imagine they're still going to attempt to sign him. And if he already turned down $440 million, you have Tatis for $340, Machado for $300. So what it costs to sign Soto, you're going to commit $1 billion, north of $1 billion to 3 players, which is crazy in its own right.
Yeah.
And then they also, let's not forget, they traded for Josh Hader.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, he struggled a little bit in July. I think he had, but people are citing ERA way too much. If you're a reliever, you can't look at ERA as a unit of measurement for how good a reliever is, because you go out there and he had an outing, I think it was against the Braves, where it was an inning, or it was a third of an inning. He gave up 6 earned runs, so then the whole thing just balloons. Josh Hader is still one of the most elite relievers in Major League Baseball, so this is a really good team.
Yeah, I mean, I love it because they've shown they're not afraid to make big moves here, like in order to compete in a division that obviously contains the juggernaut Dodgers. But the Sox, let's go. A little busy as well, right? Some are calling it like a confusing trade deadline for them. Your podcast partner, my bearded best friend, Dallas Braden, he appears to be a little confused here. So this is a tweet he sent out yesterday. Apparently thinks you're anti-Tommy Pham, but we have receipts. So check this out.
So I need a guy that's tough, that's Tommy Pham, and I need a guy that's not scared. Like you might look around the league, there might be some of these larger sized human beings, but can they fight? Can they throw a punch? Are they scared? Are they too much of a peacemaker? You might have a guy like Luke Voigt where it's like, hey man, I just had a baby, I got my wife at home, I'm not trying to get in the mix here. You know, he might not be a great guy to have by your side in a ball brawl, but you look at Tommy Pham, not scared.
Now that we've buried that drama and we have proved Dallas to be an absolute liar, just like their record, the Red Sox seemed a little split at the trade deadline here. So how would you explain their thought process?
I don't know that I can explain their thought process. I think for the most part, they tried to get better while also building towards the future.
Yeah.
You trade a guy like Jay Groom, he was their first-round pick in 2016, got Tommy John surgery, has not been the same guy since he came back. You took him, got a couple of prospects in return, plus you got Eric Hosmer, and you got the Padres to front the bill for that. So that's a pretty good return on that deal. Tommy Pham, he was a guy that Chaim Bloom brought to Tampa, I believe, in 2018. So there's the Chaim Bloom connection there. He makes hard contact, and he actually plays the outfield. You're not putting Christian Arroyo out there, who actually has never played outfield in his life. You're not putting Franchi Cordero out there, who's a horrendous defender, and they demoted him yesterday anyway. So yeah,
Trinidad Vasquez. I mean, he looks so weird in Astros
So weird.
uniform, dude.
So sad, so weird.
He did seem sad at that presser.
Yes, family's sad, Christian's sad, everyone's sad. The players were sad, his teammates were sad. There were tears in that clubhouse. I can confirm that there were tears in that clubhouse when Christian Vasquez got traded. But yeah, I think you look at their list of needs. And it's longer than the list that Chaim Bloom completed.
Okay.
But they needed a first baseman. They got one. They needed an outfielder. They got one. So technically, you're better.
Yeah, there was like a 30-minute window there where we thought Hosmer was going to torpedo that trade from Soto from Washington to the Padres. He had signed that contract, the no trade clause. He had every right to execute that because he clearly didn't want to go to D.C. It's the reason you said Soto didn't want to be there, just because it's the city. It wasn't the money. Would that have broken Twitter, man? Would that have broken Twitter if that ended up being the case, Hosmer saying no to that, and that would have shut down Soto to San Diego?
It changes the course of baseball history, though,
right?
Like, if you think about it. So there were other reports that they would have found a way. Hosmer says no, and it's like, oh, well, this trade's still going to go through. And they did find a way.
Yes.
Look at this. What's that over there? That is something
look
else.
at us.
Look at that.
Look at us just hanging
Just
out
a couple of guys.
at Hosmer's wedding.
Yeah.
He loves us, man. This
Yeah.
is the big reason he decided to choose Boston, was because you and I are
Right.
here. I was texting with Casey yesterday, and I get to be their pool boy when they find a house with a pool here.
That's going to be great. I talked to him last night. He is excited to be here, as he should be.
Yeah.
And I think he's coming with the chip on his shoulder.
He is.
He's 1,000%. He's been there. He's done that. He's won a championship. He's won 4 Gold Gloves. But there's been a lot of talk about his defense and the ground ball rate and this and that.
Yeah.
I think if he can play to the ballpark, which I think would favor left-handed hitters.
People are like, it doesn't really hit for power. That's not a hitter-friendly ballpark he's been playing in San Diego.
Right.
I mean, Boston's a little different now.
Yeah.
I feel like people are going to embrace him. People know him a little bit through, like, Casey working here, for a while.
I feel like he's been linked to Boston for years.
It's true.
Just like every time, I feel like his name came up in free agency.
Yeah.
This is not the first time that his name has been linked to the Red Sox in trade rumors.
Yeah.
Finally, he's here. I think Alex Cora made the point when he was in the managerial hunt to become Red Sox manager in late I think it was like November of 17. He's like, that was all the hub was, we were trying to get JD, we were trying to get Hosmer, and now we have both.
Some other big deals around the majors, so they include Hader, Montas, Mancini, lots of teams adding. Who improved their playoff or World Series chances the most in your eyes?
I think the obvious answer is the Padres.
Yeah, go somewhere else.
The Minnesota Twins.
Okay.
Yeah, I think that they didn't make a big splash, but they made a bunch of necessary moves that most definitely in their bullpen. They added a bunch of really good arms in their bullpen. That division is super weak, so it's really hard to see. Like, we won't know what the Twins are made of, I think, until October, because you don't play outside your division a ton. But I think that they made necessary moves to get better, and I was impressed with what they did and how aggressive they were.
All right, time to do that thing we like. It's why this segment is called The Takeoff. What's your hot baseball take of the week?
Yeah.
Here comes Billy with the camera. You got to lock eyes with the people.
Yeah, I really want
Be
you
honest
to,
with them. Don't lie.
And this is not really every week I'm giving a take. I'm not really sure that this is a take. It's more just an objective, logical reasoning.
That's fine. This is your time to shine. This is your segment.
Yeah, I think I guess it's a take, but in the end, it kind of is a fact here. The Red Sox are better than the Yankees. And let me hold on. Wait a second. Let me just explain why.
What?
Have you been watching these games against the Astros? Because the Astros have manhandled the Yankees this year. Am I right or wrong?
No, you are correct there.
The Houston Astros are 5-2 against the New York Yankees this year. The Red Sox aren't even trying, and they're just slapping the Astros around and at home in your house. They're making it look easy out there.
So your argument is if you're knocking around the team that has been knocking around the best team in baseball record-wise in stats and numbers, then that just de facto makes them the best team in baseball.
That's what I'm basically saying. Yeah. Do you follow that or no?
No, I absolutely do follow that.
Okay. I just want to make sure that you were following that because I feel like a lot of people at home, they get it. So I just want to make sure you get it too.
We have to wrap. Just give me like a 2-word answer here. How many home runs Aaron Judge going to finish with this season?
64.
Okay,
Yeah.
I like it, which would be the new Yankee record. Maris, to me, that's the solid record right there because it's not tainted by anything.
Whoa.
Okay, Jared, your job here is done.
Thank
that
you.
was a hot take, by the way. That was a hot
more
take,
of a
and I
correct
look
statement.
forward to us tweeting that out and Yankees fans being very kind to you in the replies.
Yeah, thank you.
All right, your job here is done. Mine is not. We're bringing in the Gojo boys, Golick Jr. and Brandon, plus Julian Edlow, to talk NFL training camp storylines and college football odds coming up next. All right, turns out talking with Tom Brady and Sean Payton is going to cost the Dolphins. The team has been stripped of a 2023 first-round draft pick, a third-round selection in 2024 for impermissible communications. So an NFL investigation finding the team breached the league's anti-tampering policy on 3 occasions. So twice with Tom Brady, once with Sean Payton. So let's get into it right now, unfortunately, with just DraftKings contributor Julian Edlow. That's just like when you're like out with your kid and they're like, no, like I want Mike Golick Jr. And it's like, well, we have Mike Golick Jr. at home. And like you are that version. Maybe Mike Golick Jr. and Brandon will join us here momentarily. They're on different times.
I hope so. I have plenty of negative things to say about Notre Dame.
Yeah, I know. I was looking forward to that. And they're in different time zones. So maybe there's some miscommunication and we could just blame producer Drew for it. But right now, let's put on the pads. Let's tackle the news and some stories around the world of football. We will get to college football in just a second here, but let's put our hypothetical helmets on here. If we were in week 2 of training camp, Jules, and Tom Brady and Sean Payton were the Dolphins quarterback and coach respectively, where would they be among Super Bowl favorites?
Well, if I was putting my hypothetical helmet on and Tom Brady was on the Dolphins would be hypothetically much better. So they would be pretty high on the Super Bowl board, I think, especially with Sean Payton coaching that team. The thing that I'm going to do here, though, I'm going to use the Dolphins like as constituted and just plug in coach and quarterback, replacing McDaniels and replacing Tua. The Dolphins upgraded their offensive line a lot. They have Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle as weapons. I think they would be one of the, they would be contending with the Bills for the AFC East, which would be very interesting. And they would be right up there on the board with the Bills as the Bucs are to, contend for the AFC and contend for the Super Bowl. So they would just be the Bucs placed in the AFC. A pretty similar team. The AFC is a little bit tougher now, so maybe that would impact their odds. A little bit, but also in this hypothetical situation, if Tom Brady's there, the Dolphins are also getting more players than they've gotten, and they've done pretty well to get guys like Tyreek Hill and the O-linemen to go around Tua, but they're gonna, like, Julio Jones just fell into Tom Brady's lap in Tampa last week or whenever that was. More things like that would happen, and that would make the Dolphins even better. Yeah,
Dolphins currently plus 4,000 on the DK Sportsbook. Bills still the favorite, plus 600, and then there's the Bucs, as you mentioned, up there with them at plus 700. Could you imagine Tom Brady playing the Patriots like twice a year, same division? Oh, that would be sexy. What's been your favorite NFL training camp storyline, speaking of sexy?
My favorite NFL camp storyline, I don't know if I really have a favorite, so I'll just go to the one that I think, deserves some attention. Favorite-wise, I like all this hype up that Tua's getting. Like, Tyreek Hill is giving Tua so much hype and praise, and it's a make-or-break year for Tua, and we'll see what he is. And I think it's an interesting storyline because it ties in to the Patriots in the AFC East. They have, both teams are right around 8.5 on that win total, 8.5, 9. And the storyline out of Foxborough, certainly not my favorite because I'm a Patriots fan, but I don't think they're going to be very good this year. The storyline out of Foxborough is that this offense has been unable to move the ball in training camp against the defense. Phil Perry, NBC Sports Boston, we've done some shows with him in the past. He said that the offense reminded him to a degree of when Tim Tebow was running the New England Patriot offense in training camp, which isn't very good. Jacksonville Jaguar tight end legend Tim Tebow. So when we look at the Pats in training camp, Mac Jones has to take some leaps this season, but the way that things are going, and you factor in Josh McDaniels being gone and all the moving parts that they've had, I just think this Patriots offense is going to struggle at times, and it ties right into the Dolphins take because these teams play each other in week 1. The Patriots generally start the season slow. The Patriots generally don't play well in the heat down in Miami. We get that all week 1. Dolphins 2.5-point favorites in that one. I really like Miami to get the season started with a win there at home against a Patriots team, offense specifically, that's struggling in training camp.
All right, host of the Gojo Show, Mike Golick Jr., making his debut here in the Sweat. Congratulations. This is history for you. I'm glad you decided to join the program. Good morning.
I appreciate you guys having me. Emerson, I know we had to do this and formally meet me in person out when you were here in Los Angeles so you could vet me for this. I'm ready for the show now.
All right, so, hey, the first question that I asked Jules when you weren't here, because Tom Brady is back in the news, the Dolphins mess, there's Sean Payton. Where would they be among your Super Bowl favorites? We're talking hypothetically here. If Sean Payton was the head coach of the Dolphins right now and Tom Brady was their quarterback.
Oh, I mean, there's a chance they'd probably be the favorites in this division that includes the Buffalo Bills that have made the leaps and bounds that everyone's seen over the last few years as Josh Allen and then Brian Daboll at the helm of that offense were in charge of. But I think when you look at Miami, especially now, if you were to put those two in where they were, we know what the defense has with the parts they've assembled, especially in the secondary. And now an offense where you're going to have Teron Armstead there at left tackle that they brought over from New Orleans, who Sean Payton knows very well, to try and help steady a young group that I think still has talent that just hasn't put it together yet. And then, of course, Tyreek Hill on the outside. You look at all the receiving weapons that Tom Brady's had over the years, all the different slot receivers from New England, certainly Randy Moss there, and now the bigs that he's had down in Tampa Bay. I don't know if he would have been playing with a guy like Tyreek Hill. Would have been fascinating to watch how Tom Brady and the offense we've normally seen from him morph to fit a guy with the skill set of Tyreek Hill. So I think they would probably be favored over the Bills. I don't think that would be a stretch.
All right, what about your favorite NFL training camp storyline thus far? Anything stick out to you? Can be X's and O's, could be something off the field, maybe like Zach Wilson related.
Listen, Zach, well, speaking of people that have that dog in him,
yeah,
I think one of my favorite storylines so far from camp has been watching the fit already seem to gel in Pittsburgh. We know that there's questions about Mitch Trubisky right now and what he's done at the start of camp, but George Pickens, the wide receiver rookie out of Georgia, who does confirm have that dog in him from his time as a Bulldog, but also just a guy that fit-wise really stuck out to me. We remember how much people loved Hines Ward in Pittsburgh because of what a physical presence he was as a wide receiver. George Pickens, while I'm not going to compare him to Hines Ward in any way, is a guy that wants to go out there and have a fist fight on almost every play. And I think for him, as they have him on the outside, it sounds like Chase Claypool, the former Notre Dame star, may be moving in more to that big slot role where they can use him as a bit of a gadget guy the way that he really thrived his rookie season. I think watching the Pittsburgh offense, not only who's at quarterback if Mitchell Trubisky does continue to struggle, but also what they're able to do with what I think is becoming a very interesting wide receiver room.
Yeah, and speaking of wide receivers, Ohio State saw 3 wide receivers go in the first round of the draft. Really still not expected to see much of a drop-off here, Mike, but they are facing your Irish. And Jules said before you joined the show, he was sad that you weren't currently on because he was ready to talk some trash about Notre Dame as the Irish are 15.5-point underdogs for that Week 1 meeting against the Buckeyes. So let me get the inside scoop here from you. Can Notre Dame cover such a ginormous spread here, Mike?
Yeah, I think Notre Dame's capable of covering, and now I won't go out and predict a Notre Dame win outright. This is a very good Ohio State team that brings back the core pieces of one of the rosters that's going to be capable of winning a national championship. There's like only 3 teams in college football this year, but I think the reason Notre Dame can cover is because you look at last year and the start of the season, Notre Dame's offensive line was ravaged by injury. That group really struggled for, I'd say, the first half of the season to field the same unit on the field week in and week out. This year, they bring back Notre Dame offensive line coach Harry Hiestand, who, when you think of Coach Hiestand, think of Zach Martin, Ronnie Stanley, Quentin Nelson, Mike McGlinchey. He coached all the first-round talent that was coming out of Notre Dame in those offensive line rooms. He's got a group that's young and extremely talented with guys like Blake Fisher and Joe Alt that I think are going to really raise the floor for this Notre Dame team. And we remember their strategy against Alabama the last time they were in the college football playoff. They wanted to go ground and pound and take some of the air out of the football. I think this Notre Dame team has the capability up front on both sides. It's going to be all about what they're able to do at quarterback. If Tyler Buckner can come in and then raise that ceiling there, but I believe they've got the floor to make this a game that's within 2 touchdowns for the majority of the time.
Yeah, Jules, I think Gojo here could be onto something. So looking back at the Brian Kelly era, Notre Dame an underdog of 14 points or more 4 times during the Brian Kelly era. Of course, they lost all 4 of those games, but 3-1 ATS.
Yeah, I mean, as it pertains to Notre Dame, I don't think they're going to have a bad season. Their win total set at 8.5. I would lean to the over on that. I think they're going to probably win 9 games. Now, like Mike said, one of them's probably not coming in week 1 against Ohio State. The question is, can they keep it within the 15.5? And it opened 13.5, and bettors have been pounding Ohio State so far. And it obviously got past that key number of 14. Ohio State should be good enough to keep it within this. I think Ohio State will win it by more than 2 touchdowns. So if I'm betting the spread, I would lean to Ohio State. And I guess that answers the question specifically, who covers the game. I lean Ohio State, but the way that I want to bet this game as a sports bettor, I want to bet the Ohio State team total, which we don't have out yet. It'll come out closer to the game. What I'm curious, what Mike said, like Notre Dame wants to try and ground and pound to try and stay in this game, and they have to because everyone watched that Rose Bowl against Utah with what Ohio State is capable of doing through the air. So that's my question. How much can Notre Dame take the air out of the ball, grind the clock to limit Ohio State's possessions? Because the Ohio State defense isn't anything that special. I think they're pretty good, but they're not that special this season. So if Notre Dame is actually putting some points on the board and, getting into the high 20s or something, is Ohio State going to get more possessions and going to have to sling it more? The team total, just given that the total of the game is 58 and the spread is 15.5, we're looking at like 36.5, 37.5 for Ohio State here. That's my favorite way to play this game. I think they're going to go over that. I bet Utah in that Rose Bowl game. I still have that playing out in my head. Just every time bombing it down the field to these receivers.
Just remember, Notre Dame is going to have scholarship cornerbacks playing and starting this game here. Utah, God love that poor young man, a running back that they had to convert to a corner in that game because of injury and otherwise. So at the very least, I know walking into that game, our scholarship corners will be on the field and we won't have to play someone that out of position. But I'm with you. I too have nightmares about Jackson Smith and Jigba and what he is capable of loose in a secondary.
Well, guys,
that is a very true point. The Notre Dame secondary will, I hope so, be better than the Utah secondary was in that game. But I'm curious to see how many points Ohio State can put in the board on this one. I think that if you like Ohio State, I think going for the team total rather than laying the points is going to be the way to go.
Well, one more for you guys before you take off. Let's look at the college football playoff here. I think everyone's pretty set on Ohio State, Georgia, Alabama, those three. Maybe like Ohio State, Georgia in the Fiesta Bowl, and then Alabama in the Capital One Orange Bowl against who? That fourth spot, Mike, always a good debate. Who do you like right now, maybe rounding out the college football playoff?
Yeah, I know this is going to be chalky and very unsexy for a lot of people, but as much as we dogged on them last year for only winning 10 games, including a bowl game, Clemson, until further notice, has to be the consensus pick. This is a defense, when you talk to people around the ACC, probably not getting the preseason hype it deserves for something that could be an unholy weapon.
Yeah.
The defensive line that they have, guys like Brian Brzee and Miles Murphy, future first-round draft picks, make up a unit that brings back a lot of depth, is getting a bunch of guys healthy, and even though Brent Venables isn't there, should scare the living daylights out of people.
Yeah, dude, the defense, I'm looking at it now, flush with All-American talent. As long as that offense returns to form in the ACC, you could be right there. Jules, who do you like for that fourth spot?
The Clemson defense is going to be spectacular. The offense worries me a little bit, and who knows? Maybe they'll make a QB change. The way that things went with DJ last year leaves that door open, and they have a very intriguing prospect coming in. Ohio State and Alabama are getting in. There's no question in my mind Ohio State and Alabama are getting in, potentially undefeated. I'm not 100% sold on Georgia. Georgia, if you go to DraftKings Sportsbook, is essentially a pick'em to make or miss the college football playoff. I think making it's probably the better bet. But, I think they'll lose to Alabama in the SEC championship game. If they slip up once during the regular season, now that's 2 losses, and 2-loss teams don't get into the college football playoff. So I think Georgia and Clemson are both up in the air. The team that I'm looking at, and we just talked about them, they're going to have real cornerbacks this year. That's Utah out of the Pac-12. They open up in the swamp against Florida. They opened dogs. They're now favorites on DK Sportsbook. If they can win that tough road game, I think that Utah can grind out 11 wins. They're already favored in 11 of their 12 games on DK Sportsbook. The one game that they're an underdog, they are a 1-point dog at Oregon. So they're capable of winning every game on the schedule. Let's say they go 11-1 and win that Pac-12 title game. Now they're 12-1, and Clemson and Georgia, or at least one of them, has a slip up along the way. I think Utah can get in there, and we just saw that they had the ability without corners. I know Ohio State was missing some guys. They have the ability to hang with an Ohio State. They're a college football caliber team. They might have been in the mix last year if they went with Cam Rising out of the gates instead of starting 1 and 2 without him.
All right, Golick, good having you on the show. Looking forward to doing this more. Maybe next time, make sure like Brandon shows up too, because he was scheduled for this. We're extremely disappointed in him.
Yeah.
Extremely
Listen, we're going to have to rally the troops on here. Yeah, late night, a lot of things working in the kitchen. Brandon pumped out a great podcast for everyone.
Great.
We'll make sure we drag him over here for the sweat next time so he can apologize to you formally, Emerson.
Cool. Thank you so much, man. All right, we're going to dive into tonight's 5-game MLB slate, who to roster. Plus, we're still talking golf. Final push for the FedEx Cup playoffs after this. All right, let's dive into tonight's slates. Major League Baseball, main slate, only a handful of games. That would be 5. Our panel, DraftKings contributors Nick Fryer, Garion Thorne, RotoWire's Eric Halterman. Hello, you three. So let's cover the bases. Best DFS and sportsbook plays on the menu. First base, high-priced DFS player. Where are you going, Garion?
I don't want to make it too complicated. I'm just going to go with Shohei Ohtani, who's the most expensive pitcher on this slate.
Wow.
Going up against the Oakland Athletics, who, you know, to their credit, and we don't get to give the Athletics a lot of credit, they've been hitting pretty well since the All-Star break, but this is a team that ranks 29th in baseball against right-handed pitchers in both WOBA and WRC+. Ohtani's got a 36% strikeout rate for the season. And, oh, yeah, he struck out double-digit opponents in 6 straight starts. I think on a slate this small with a lot of sort of like mediocre to slightly below average pitchers, it's really hard to ignore the upside, just the crazy upside that Shohei Ohtani gives you on the mound.
Yeah, the A's offense just cannot score runs. Eric, how about you?
Yeah, Ohtani is ultimately going to be my answer here, too. It's him or Freddie Peralta would be high-priced pitchers with the talent and the matchup to justify their price tag. Unfortunately, Peralta, in his first start back from a lat injury, a little bit concerned about how deep he'll be able to go. Otherwise, it's a great matchup against the Pirates. I think that's just going to send everybody to Ohtani on this small slate. And I think I wouldn't want to miss out on the huge point total he's going to rack up. I don't want to let, even if 80% of the slate's on him, I don't want to be the 20% that isn't. Will say if you want a high-priced hitter, I like Rowdy Tellez, just 4,900, has a nice matchup and has been scoring double-digit points over his last 10 games.
All right, Fryer, you can go pitcher north of 8K or a hitter over $4,500. What do you want to do here, Bearded Wonder?
Yeah, I think the guys covered Shohei pretty well. I mean, Julio Urias is the only guy I'd consider in the high price range outside of him, and he doesn't have really a great matchup for him tonight. When it comes to hitters, though, Juan Soto, got to be the guy tonight, 5.4K going up against the Rockies. I understand he's going to be a little chalky, but he's making his Friars debut. How am I not going to take him? He's going up against Chad Kuhl, who against lefties even struggles on the road. Last 46 left-handed hitters he's faced away from course have a 35.5% line drive rate. Same number for their fly ball rate as well. 43.8% hard contact rate. That's led to a pair of home runs, 3 doubles, and triple in those 46 left-handed hitters. So, I mean, Soto now he's going to get protection too. So I love him in this spot in his first game as a Friar.
All right, Fryer, second base. Best DFS value play for this slate. 5 games.
Yeah, so obviously when we're all talking about taking Shohei Ohtani, it's going to be really important how you spend your money at pitcher from a value perspective. And I looked at James Caprilian at 5.7K in that same game going up against the Angels. Obviously, Caprilian hasn't been what we would have maybe thought he was going to be this year, but he's been doing pretty well of late, coming off consecutive strong outings after the break, giving up 1 or fewer runs in 4 of his last 5 outings, logged at least 6 innings in 3 of those outings. And then when you look at the Angels too, they have the highest K rate and highest ground ball rate against right-handed pitching since the start of July. Obviously, Caprilian gets more fly balls, but then hitting a ton of ground balls should help him a little bit. And they're also bottom 5 in hard contact rate against right-handed pitching since July as well.
Gare Bear, hook me up with your value play.
Yeah, I had Caprilian written down too. And maybe you get into a scenario where some people are a little bit nervous about using both pitchers in the same game. It does sort of limit your upside. You can't get 2 wins there, so maybe you can find some differentiation. I would also say, depending on how this Padres lineup just shakes out, just find the cheap guy below 4K, whether that's like Ha-Seong Kim, maybe it's like Trent Grisham. Like, I really don't know what this lineup is going to look like, if we're being completely honest. There's so many new bodies. It's kind of hilarious that Brandon Drury, just because he was so highly priced on the Reds and playing Great American Ballpark, he's like the most expensive Padre on this team full of all-stars. But you look at Chad Kuhl, his last 5 starts, he's got an ERA of 8.71. And while he's usually struggled throughout his career against left-handed batters to a high degree, he's also been terrible against right-handed batters in that recent stretch, giving up a slugging percentage of over 760 in that span of time. So it doesn't matter the handedness of the batter. It just matters who ends up in this lineup. Find your value with the Padres.
Easy E, who are you targeting for value tonight in DFS?
Yeah, so I love going to the young guys who just got called up in this section, which is why I'm going to counterbalance that and go with 97-year-old Albert Pujols. Costs the minimum. And yes, he's not Albert Pujols that we're used to, but he's actually still a league average bat, 105 WRC plus on the season. That's pretty good for an absolute minimum price bat. And against lefties, he's quite strong still, 152 WRC plus on the season. Even though he can't run out, a single ground ball, he doesn't strike out all that often and makes a fair amount of hard contact. That's a great package for a guy who costs this low, especially against mediocre lefty Justin Steele for the Cubs, and then whoever comes in after. The team just traded 4 of its best relievers. So I think Pujols is a great value in this kind of range.
Yeah, very cap-friendly salary for sure. Third base here, guys. The early slate today is absolutely loaded. I think around 9 or 10 games here. So let's go to the DK Sportsbook area and hook me up with your favorite bet there for the early slate.
Well, I hope I'm going to make Eric smile with this one, but anytime I think Zach Wheeler is an underdog on the money line, even if it's against an Atlanta Braves team that has been hitting the cover off the baseball, you got to go with that. I mean, Zach Wheeler across his last 13 starts has a 2.20 ERA, a 2.73 FIP. And on the other side, I've been saying for a while now, Charlie Morton, when you lop off the month of April, which I think is fair because he was a really old man who was forced into action without a proper spring training, his numbers are actually pretty good, but he's still pretty volatile. He gave up 5 runs, 4 earned runs to this exact same Phillies team the last time he took the mound, gave up 5 earned runs in another start in mid-July. So while Morton can be as good as Wheeler on occasion, I just think he is the much more up and down of these 2 starters. I think you know what you're getting from the Phillies side on the mound in this contest, and I can't say the same for the Braves. So at plus 120, I'm going to take a shot with Zach Wheeler.
Eric, did he make you smile with that?
Yeah, he did. The only reason I wouldn't be smiling is now I have to find more things to say about the same game because it's my top choice as well. Tough to call the Phillies the underdog with Zach Wheeler on the mound. Season numbers are great as is, but if you toss out his first 3 starts, if you remember he got that slow start to the season due to shoulder issues, his ERA drops all the way down to 2.05 if you toss those first 3 out. strikeout rate even jumps up a tick and a half as well. Charlie Morton, he's lost a ton of his ground balls this year, which is why he's no longer the reliable guy he used to be. He's actually still keeping his velocity at his age, which is amazing. But a ground ball rate below 40%, this is a guy who averages over 50% for his career and earned the nickname Ground Chuck. He's just not the guy he used to be. He's not good enough to make his team the favorites over Zach Wheeler.
All right, Mr. Nick, what do you want to do? Favorite bet for the early slate?
Of course, I have to go last. When I also like the Phillies on the money
Oh,
line.
come on!
But I was prepared for this type of thing to happen, Emerson.
Yes.
Okay. Now I was looking at Zach Wheeler's K prop. It's set at 6.5, but it's at minus 145. And obviously, I'm not going to go and give out a pick when the juice is that high. But when I looked at Charlie Morton's, he was also at 6.5 at minus 110. Now, I don't love Morton to get 7 strikeouts in this game, but when you go and use the same game parlay function on DK Sportsbook, you can move some of those numbers down a little bit, adjust it how you like it. So I stuck with Wheeler at getting at least 7 Ks in this game, and then Morton just to get 5. That brings it to minus 110. Nice solid number. Chuck hasn't gone under that number since May 25th. Now, that was against this Phillies team, but at the same time, last time out, he faced the Phillies, got 5 punch-outs against them. You look at Wheeler, he's logged at least 7 strikeouts in 11 of his 19 starts this season. And of course, most important probably in all this, both teams have a K rate north of 24% against right-handed pitching since July 1st.
All right, last one. We're going home. Best bet for tonight's slate of games. Need you to be quick on this one, Fryer. All 3 of you need to be quick. Producer Drew is not happy.
Oh, boy. Well, James Caprilian over 15.5 outs reported, minus 120 going up against the Angels. I think this one, I talked about Caprilian already. I mean, if I'm backing him in for DFS purposes and expecting to get, towards 6 innings, this is a no-brainer bet for me.
Eric.
Yeah, I like the Giants at plus 145 against the Dodgers. It was actually plus 135 when I liked it last night, and it's getting even better. Alex Cobb's ERA is almost a run and a half worse than Julio Urias's, but he beats Urias pretty soundly in all of the ERA estimators. I believe that Urias has some ERA estimator beating skill to him, but I don't think the Giants at plus 145 when the gap between the underlying numbers is that big actually in Giants starter Alex Cobb's favor. I don't think that's a accurate representation of the gap between these two teams.
Gare Bear, favorite bet for tonight?
I'm going to go Sandy over 7.5 strikeouts at plus 140 against the Reds. The Reds have the 3rd highest strikeout rate since the All-Star break, and they traded 2 of their lowest strikeout rate bats in Brandon Drury and Tyler Naquin. Sandy's also got 10-plus strikeouts in 3 of his last 5 starts. I have no idea why this number is juiced the way it is. Sandy over 7.5.
All right, guys. Appreciate the help. The Gorgeous Golf Gurus coming up next. Looking at that. All right, it's time for some PGA Tour price check ahead of the final tournament, right? For the FedEx Cup playoffs. Yeah, let's go.
Yeah, man.
Yeah, man. Yeah, man. Reed T. Fowler, what's up, dude? Jeff Ulrich, what's up, dude? Len Hochberg, what's up, dude? How are all you dudes doing today?
Dude, I forgot the memo. I know you got the memo, hashtag Adidas Golf there, Emerson. But you and I forgot the memo that we were supposed to be wearing hats on this show.
Yeah, I was told I can't wear a hat anymore when I'm in studio, so I listened to those.
That makes sense. That was a big forehead.
It really is, dude. Feel free to. All right, never mind. All right, let's Let's open it up here a bit at the top of the board. Usually we're talking what, like 10K plus guys. Let's include the dudes at 9K because we like them as well because those extra savings can actually make a difference in a lineup. So hook me up, Reti Fowler, favorite golfer price at $9,000 or more this week.
Oh, you're really making this one tough because I like a few. I'm doing the Jeff Ulrich, name 15 guys in above 9,000.
Yes.
But I will go to Jeff's neck of the woods here and say Corey Connors. Like, I love Sanjay M. I really do. But I'm going to talk about Sanjay in a little bit. Corey Connors, right? Talk about a guy who's 9th in teed green over the last 24 rounds. When he can get the putter going, that's a big win or a big if. This guy is tough to beat in the ball striking department, right? So you take a look at all the guys up here, all of them. Sans probably Zalatoris in terms of course form. You can all make cases for them above 9,000. Tyrell Hatton, maybe not, but I'd probably lean Corey Connors above 9K if I'm choosing anyone here from the top.
Dude, he's 35th in the FedEx Cup. Like,
Yeah.
it doesn't feel like that at all.
Where has he been?
Only 2 top 10s in 2022, but okay, hey, you know what? You got to draw ready to be different, right, Jeff?
You do. I mean, look, hey, if the heart wants what the heart wants, Reed wants to pay down for Corey Connors, that's fine. I'm going to pay up for my quality guy here in Shane Lowry, 10-6. I'll go an extra grand. Look, there's a ton of value. Lots of guys that can pop this week. I think for GPPs, building out with a couple of these top players, maybe even 2 of them over 10K, maybe Zalatoris and Lowry, maybe Sungjae and Lowry. But I really like the big Irishman here. I mean, this is the guy who's 3rd at Hilton Head, 2nd at Honda. I mean, he likes these courses. He likes these shorter little technical tracks, and his approach game is basically been world class all year. He's top 5 in like long range, short range approach, strokes gained approach. His short game, which is kind of the weakness of his game, isn't going to get tested at Sedgefield because these greens, everyone hits like 80%. So I like this one. I think Lowry's just really due for a win. He's played such good quality golf. I think projections wise, like you've got to look at him and Zalatoris as the 2 horses that really just from an approach standpoint, what they're doing on the course and just, recent production. I think Lowry is the pay up candidate here. I really do. I think Sungjae is up there too, but I would rank him Lowry, Zalatoris, Sungjae this week.
Dude, you would definitely, you've got to feel like he's played well enough, too, to win at least once in 2022. Like, perhaps more. I think that's, 5 top 10s worldwide this year. Hey, Len, where are you going? $9,000 or more this week.
Yeah, it's amazing. They both mentioned 15 guys each, and they didn't mention the guys I'm gonna mention. So thank you. I'm very big on Billy Horschel this week. He played well here. He's very accurate off the tee, very accurate on the green. He has a good enough putter to go super low. You're going to have to get north of 20 under to win this tournament this week, and he can do it. I also big on Russell Henley, but I don't know if he can get to 20 under with his putter. He plays very well here. He was fantastic last week. It's amazing how low he can go without a putter. That's how accurate he is with his iron. So very impressed as the way he plays without a putter, although he has putted better here than in most places. Those are 2 my favorite plays. So I'm sure the 3 of us helped everybody out by naming everybody north of 9K.
And look, Len, you didn't get the memo, so I'm not going to get mad at you, but we typically don't bring up Billy Horschel on this show. So I'll talk to you after. He's just not a player that we like to mention, but it's fine.
Yeah, hey, listen, it's not a major, so he can win this thing. Plus, he's got a good.
I don't care if he does win. We just no.
All right, relax. Looking forward to talking about Billy Ho tonight on the slate with you guys. Plus, he's got a good history at Sedgefield. Between $7,500 and $9,000 in that range, Jeff. Who do you like?
I mean, I like everybody here. No, I'm just kidding. Aaron Wise is the player that I think you really need to look at. He's just 8,100. He's just too cheap. I mean, Tom Kim, Kisner, Bazeno, these guys are great. Aaron Wise is a player who just contends everywhere at this point. His game is on, you look at long-term and short-term form, just like Lowry. He's top 10 in strokes gain approach in both those stats. So I think Aaron Wise, just for what he's done this season, he challenged at the Memorial, and he did get beat by Billy Horschel there, but really consistent in the majors. Again, like Lowry, just feels like a player who's talented enough that he's underpriced this week, and he really should be pushing for a win. So in this range, again, I won't even mention other players. There are a couple other ones you could look at, but Aaron Wise is by far my favorite. I think he's one of the best values on the board, period, this week. And I think he's a play who could make a mark here because, in his other win on in his only win on the PGA Tour, he got to like 22 under. So Wise is it for me. I think at 8,100, he's way too cheap.
Reed, is this a sweet spot price range for this tournament?
It is. This is a Jeff Ulrich tournament special. You got Russell Henley, Aaron Wise, JT Poston, Scrub 5 and 6 that Jeff just loves to play. But look, Aaron Wise is fine. His approach game is fine, but distance is a big thing you don't need here, and that's why I'm going with a lefty and Brian Harmon at $8,300. Especially you got to swerve, right? Denny McCarthy, he's going to be popular, but talk about Brian Harmon. 5 top 10 finishes so far this season. He's got a mixed bag of finishes here that includes some top finishes. A third way back in 2013 when Jeff had hair. That's when he was, top 3 at this course. But, talk about Bermuda putting. Like, Brian Harmon is top 20 over the last 24 rounds. So there's a lot of places you can go. The last 3 winning lineups on DraftKings have used a total of $50,000, right? So that includes probably one guy from the top and maybe one guy here. I think Brian Harmon is that swerve piece that you could use.
Yeah, a couple good finishes, as you mentioned, but a worrisome number of missed cuts here as well. Len, between $7,500 and $9,000, who stands out to you?
Yeah, Captain Obvious checking in here with Siwoo Kim at 8,800. Bound to be a popular guy. I mean, his record here over the last 5 years, a win, a second, a third, a fifth. I don't know how he is $2,000 cheaper than Webb Simpson. I don't know how Webb Simpson's 10-7, but that's another story. Sometimes I try not to overthink things. Siwoo Kim, the thing is he can't putt, but he putts in positive territory every year, the past 3 years at least, here at Sedgefield. So this is one of his favorite places. You don't want to get a guy who's super highly owned, but I mean, if you pick just one highly owned guy, that's okay. If you're going to get 4 or 5, that's different. You have 5 other places to separate yourself. And down at 8,200, JT Poston putting great, won a couple of weeks ago and won this tournament in 2019. He is heating up with the putter, can win this week outright.
Yeah, Siwoo Kim, a Sedgefield killer for sure. Best play below $7,500, Ulrich.
Look, this is where I really shine. So I'm going to take my time with this one. Tyler Duncan at 7,100. I really like this play this week. He's really nice. He's like plus 175 for a top 40 on the DraftKings Sportsbook too. But 7,100 for DFS, we can get behind that. He's got an early tee time Thursday morning. Tyler Duncan's gained 1.5 strokes or more on approach in 6 of his last 7 starts. Sets up perfectly for the Wyndham Championship. Look, he's a former winner of the RSM Classic, so he likes these short Bermuda tracks. And he's a solid player. Like, he's been producing solid results. If he brings the putter this week, I absolutely think that he's playing well enough to challenge for a top 20. So really like Tyler Duncan. And look, it's one of those weeks where, some of these scrub guys are going to show up. Henrik Norlander at 6,400 people finally broke the 7-event missed cut streak last week in Detroit with a T30. Gained over 3 strokes on approach. Norlander can light it up on these little tricky courses too. He's got a good record at the RSM Classics. I'm telling you, get some Henrik Norlander in your GPP lineups. I think he's going to be that sub 1% guy that challenges for a top 20 as well.
Reed, Jeff may be onto something here with Duncan. So in the last 50 rounds,
I'm onto something.
Listen. The last 50 rounds played on the PGA Tour, he ranks 18th in strokes gained, tee to green, 19th in strokes gained ball striking.
Yeah, but if you want to be an L7, if you want to be a square,
L7 weenie,
and just go after T dunks, it's fine. And if you want to name randos down in the $6,000 range, have a little BVP in your life, a little Bo Van Pelt. He was fantastic actually in the first few days at the Rocket Mortgage last week. But there's a lot of guys. Talk about the winning lineups. To Len's point, Webb Simpson has been in every single winning lineup over the past 3 years, and he was over 30% rostered. Right when you talk about going after the chalk. But in this question, I want that less than or equal to at $7,500 because I'm going back to Jeff's boy that he rostered in back-to-back weeks and all of a sudden is getting off of him, which I think a lot of people are, is Cameron Champ, right? Quietly, tee to green, this guy has 2 top 20s. And look, distance is not a thing that you need here. And he was a little wayward in the first couple of days on fairways gained or accuracy last week. But look at the weekends and look at what he's done in those rounds. It's been fantastic. You get him at $7,500. We know that this guy has winning pedigree. You like him on the shorter courses that are par 72s, but this guy needs to get in the top 125 in FedEx Cup standings. So give me Cameron Champ at $7,500. All BVP down there.
All right, Len, very quickly here before I get your picks to win.
Yeah, Tyler Duncan fan club here. I've mentioned him many times here on the shorter tracks. He's a different guy. I won't go over it again. Chesson Hadley, $6,900. He's inside the top 125, a great putter, top 25 in strokes gained putting. He has 3 top 10s since the U.S. Open and made 4 straight cuts here at Sedgefield, I believe. 6,400, Jonathan Bird, if you really need someone just to get to the weekend.
All right, guys, just need a name. Who's winning the Wyndham Championship? If anybody has questions for why, they can tweet you. Read.
Sanjay M.
Yes. Jeff.
Russell Henley.
Oh, my goodness.
Len Hochberg, go ahead.
I don't know. Am I allowed to say the name? But that's who I think is going to win. The guy I'm not allowed to say.
Billy Ho! It's Billy Ho season, boys! And we're going to talk a lot more about it tonight, 5 o'clock Eastern time on the slate. Yeah, Jeff and I and Reed T. Fowler talking about the Wyndham Championship. We'll dive into maybe some FedEx Cup playoff odds. We'll see, dudes. We'll have a good time. So 5 o'clock Eastern time, DraftKings Twitter, Twitch, and YouTube pages. And I'll see you tomorrow morning back here for the Sweat, 11 o'clock Eastern time.